She was in labor, alone, screaming for a husband who would not answer his phone. While Claire Mitchell fought to bring their miracle baby into the world, her husband Garrett was 3,000 miles away, sipping champagne on a beach with another woman. But that was not the worst part.
To us.
The worst part was the
To
phone
paradise,
call that came
darling.
next. The one that revealed a secret so devastating, so unthinkable, that it would destroy everything Garrett thought he had built. You see, Garrett made one critical mistake. He assumed his wife was weak.
Going somewhere,
He assumed
Garrett.
she would never
We haven't
fight
even
back.
started dinner, and
He
yet
assumed the
you've
lies
already
he had
confessed
buried would
everything.
stay buried forever. He was catastrophically wrong.
Yay,
What Claire
great
discovered
job.
in that
Keep it up,
hospital
you
room
two.
was not just betrayal. It was a conspiracy that went deeper than infidelity, darker than gambling debts, and more twisted than anything she could have imagined. This is not just a story about a cheating husband. This is a story about a woman who lost everything and then burned his entire world to the ground. Stay with me until the end, because the final twist, you will never see it coming. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Claire Mitchell lay on the narrow bed, her hands clenched in the thin cotton sheets as another wave of pain rolled through her body. The digital clock on the wall showed 6:12 in the morning. December 15th, her delivery day, the day she had circled on the calendar for months, the day she had survived injections, hormones, tears, and silence for. Her phone lay beside her pillow, silent as a stone. She reached for it again, even though she already knew what she would see. No missed calls, no new messages, just the same unanswered text she had sent an hour earlier. I am being admitted. Please call me. Outside the window, Manhattan was waking up. Ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Early sunlight crept between buildings, painting the gray sky with streaks of orange. Life moved forward, indifferent to the fact that hers felt like it was standing on a cliff. A nurse adjusted the IV drip and offered a practiced smile. "Your husband should be here soon," she said. Claire nodded automatically. It was easier than explaining. What she did not say was that her husband, Garrett Mitchell, had boarded a plane 12 hours earlier. She did not say that while she sat alone in a hospital gown, he was waking up somewhere near the ocean. White sheets, filtered sunlight, and a woman who was not his wife beside him. She had seen the photo by accident, an Instagram story that vanished after 15 seconds. A glass of champagne, a balcony railing, a familiar male hand wearing the watch she had bought Garrett on their anniversary. No faces, no names, but Claire knew. Her stomach tightened, and this time it was not from labor. Another contraction hit harder. She gasped, her body curling inward, instinctively protecting the life inside her. "It is okay," she whispered to her belly, voice trembling. "Mom is here. I am here." But the truth was cruelly simple. She was alone. Her phone finally buzzed. For half a second, relief flooded her chest so fast it almost hurt. She grabbed it with shaking fingers. Not Garrett, a notification from her insurance app. "Coverage update. Your plan has been modified." Claire frowned, blinking through sweat and confusion. Modified today? Her heart began to pound, a warning drum she could not silence. She tried to open the details, but another contraction stole her breath before she could read further. Across town at a luxury coastal resort hours away, Garrett Mitchell silenced his phone and dropped it face down on the nightstand. He told himself it was necessary. This weekend was his last chance to breathe. Claire would understand, she always did. He had no idea that while he slept, his wife's blood pressure was climbing to dangerous levels. He had no idea that doctors were already whispering words like emergency and risk. He had no idea that his absence was about to become irreversible. Back in the hospital room, the monitor beside Claire began to beep faster. A nurse's expression changed, just slightly, but enough for Claire to notice. "Claire," the nurse said gently, reaching for the call button. "I need you to stay with me, okay?" Claire nodded, tears slipping silently into her hairline. She stared at her phone one last time and whispered the words that would haunt her for months. "Please, just answer." He did not. And somewhere between that unanswered call and the next contraction, Claire felt it with terrifying clarity. This was not just the day she would give birth. This was the day her life would split in two. The doors burst open and her best friend, Miranda James, rushed in, still wearing pajama pants under her winter coat. A canvas bag stuffed with snacks and a neck pillow clutched against her chest. "I am here," Miranda announced, slightly out of breath. I am here. I am here. Where is that useless husband of yours? Claire tried to smile, but another wave of pain stole it from her face. She gripped Miranda's hand instead, squeezing hard enough to leave marks. He is not answering, Claire managed to say between breaths. Miranda's expression darkened. She pulled out her own phone and scrolled rapidly. Then she stopped. Her whole body went still. Claire, do not freak out. What? Miranda hesitated, then turned the screen toward her. It showed an Instagram story from someone named Vanessa Cole, a beach sunset, two champagne glasses clinking, a man's hand with a distinctive watch, the Rolex Claire had given Garrett for their anniversary. The caption read simply, "Paradise with my person." Claire's face went white. Then she lurched sideways and vomited into the basin the nurse quickly provided. The monitor started screaming. "Blood pressure 180 over 110, a nurse called out. "We need to prep for emergency surgery." "No," Claire gasped, trying to sit up. "No, I cannot. My husband. He needs to be here." Dr. Samuel Reed entered the room with calm authority, his eyes scanning the monitors before landing on Claire's face. He was in his 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of steady presence that made you believe everything would be okay, even when it clearly was not. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said firmly, "I need you to focus on me. Your baby is in distress. We are going now." Claire felt hands lifting her, moving her in, wheeling her toward bright lights and cold hallways. She reached for her phone one last time. Desperate, broken, Miranda grabbed it from her trembling fingers. "I will keep trying," she promised. "You just focus on that baby." As the operating room doors swung open, Claire caught sight of her reflection in a glass panel. Pale, vulnerable, alone. She closed her eyes and made a silent vow to the child inside her. "I am going to fight for you, even when I am scared, even when no one else shows up." The doors closed behind her, and somewhere far away, a phone continued to ring. 3 years earlier, Claire Mitchell had been a different woman. Not weaker exactly, but certainly more willing to believe in fairy tales. She had grown up in the foster care system in Ohio, shuffled between 7 different homes before she turned 18. Some were kind, most were indifferent. A few were cruel in ways that left marks you could not see. By the time she aged out of the system, Claire had learned one lesson above all others. You could only count on yourself. She put herself through community college, then transferred to a state university on scholarships and determination. She graduated with a degree in healthcare administration and took a job as a medical billing specialist at a hospital in Columbus. The work was tedious, buried in codes and insurance claims, but it was stable, it was safe, and Claire had learned to value safety above almost everything else. Then Garrett Mitchell walked into her life. They met at a conference in Chicago. He was a vice president of operations at a growing tech company, charming in a way that felt effortless, successful in a way that felt earned. He wore expensive suits, but talked about his grandmother's cooking. He drove a luxury car, but volunteered at homeless shelters on weekends. Or at least that was what he told her. What drew Claire in was not his money or his status. It was the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room. After a lifetime of feeling invisible, of being just another file in a system that processed children like paperwork, Garrett made her feel chosen. They dated for a year. He flew her to New York for her birthday, took her to Paris for their 6-month anniversary. He introduced her to his colleagues as the love of my life before she had even met his parents. When he proposed on a rooftop in Manhattan, the city sparkling below them like a promise, Claire said yes, without hesitation. Her best friend Miranda was less convinced. "Girl," Miranda said over wine one night, "why do you not have your own credit card?" Claire laughed it off. "Garrett handles the finances. He is good at it." Miranda raised an eyebrow. "And you are good at medical billing. You literally find fraud for a living." "You do not want to look at your own money?" "He is not controlling," Claire insisted. "He is caring. You do not understand." But Miranda understood more than Claire wanted to admit. She had grown up in Detroit, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them fed. Miranda had seen smooth-talking men destroy women her whole life. She knew what control looked like when it wore a nice suit. Still, she held her tongue. Claire was happy, or at least Claire believed she was happy, and sometimes that was the same thing. The marriage was good at first. Garrett moved Claire to a beautiful apartment in Manhattan. He encouraged her to quit her job and focus on getting healthy so they could start a family. She hesitated, but he was so confident, so reassuring. Baby, you work so hard, he would say, rubbing her shoulders after dinner. Let me handle the boring stuff. You deserve to relax. Slowly, piece by piece, Claire's independence disappeared. Her own bank account sat dormant. Her own career faded into memory. Her own opinions became suggestions that Garrett would consider and then gently overrule. After 2 years of trying, Claire could not conceive naturally. The doctor said it was not impossible, just unlikely. Garrett suggested IVF without missing a beat. I will handle everything, he promised. The clinic, the insurance, all of it. You just focus on staying calm and healthy. Claire was so grateful she did not question anything. Not when Garrett had private conversations with Dr. Harrison at the fertility clinic. Not when he insisted on signing all the paperwork himself. Not when she asked what they discussed, and he simply said, just payment plans, babe. Nothing you need to worry about. The IVF worked on the second cycle. Claire was pregnant. She cried for an hour when she saw the positive test, and Garrett held her and whispered, see, I told you I would take care of everything. For a few months, she believed him. Then the cracks began to show. Garrett worked later and later. He took business trips that seemed to multiply. He was distracted at dinner, checking his phone constantly, smiling at texts he never explained. Claire told herself it was stress. The company was growing. He had responsibilities. She was probably being paranoid, hormonal, unreasonable. Miranda saw it differently. At Claire's baby shower, Miranda pulled her aside, slightly tipsy but deadly serious. So Garrett picked the sperm, picked the doctor, picked the insurance plan. Girl, did he also pick what position you conceived in? Oh, wait. She stopped herself, covering her mouth with exaggerated horror, then burst out laughing. Claire laughed too, shoving her playfully. You are terrible. But later that night, alone in the bathroom, Claire stared at her reflection and wondered why the joke had landed so close to something true. The last conversation she had with Garrett before everything fell apart was 3 days before her due date. She was on bed rest, swollen and exhausted, and he was packing for what he called an emergency work trip. You will be fine, he said, kissing her forehead. The doctor said you have at least another week. I will be back before anything serious happens. Claire wanted to ask him to stay. She wanted to tell him that she was scared, that something felt wrong, that she needed him. But she had spent 3 years learning not to need too much. So she smiled and said, okay, be safe. He walked out the door without looking back. 48 hours later, Claire was in a hospital bed alone, watching her life implode through the screen of a phone that kept showing her exactly where her husband was and exactly who he was with. Garrett Mitchell woke to the sound of waves instead of alarms. Sunlight spilled through sheer white curtains, painting the luxury hotel room in soft gold. The air smelled like sea salt and expensive citrus soap. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he turned his head and saw Vanessa Cole stretched beside him. Her blonde hair fanned across a pillow that probably cost more than the crib he still had not finished assembling at home. She smiled sleepily. Morning, she said, her voice warm and unburdened. Garrett reached for his phone out of habit, then stopped himself. He remembered why he had silenced it. No meetings, no hospital updates, no responsibility clawing at his chest. This trip was supposed to be a reset. Just 2 days. That was what he told himself. Did she text? Vanessa asked casually, as if she were asking about the weather. Garrett exhaled and shrugged. She will be fine. Doctors do this every day. Vanessa rolled onto her side, tracing a lazy line along his arm. You cannot carry everyone's stress, Nate. You deserve this. He wanted to believe her. He needed to. Hours earlier, as he boarded the flight, he had typed out a message to Claire. Something reassuring, something vague. He deleted it 3 times before settling on, I will be back before anything serious happens. It sounded responsible enough. He hit send and never looked back. Now, standing on the balcony with a mug of fresh coffee, Garrett stared at the endless blue horizon. Somewhere far away, his wife was in a hospital bed. Somewhere far away, his child was about to enter the world. The distance made it easier to breathe. Vanessa was already dressed, scrolling through her phone, careful to keep her camera angled just right. She snapped a photo of the ocean, the breakfast tray, the edge of Garrett's watch peeking into frame. She did not tag him. She did not have to. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced down and saw the hospital number once more. His jaw tightened. He flipped the phone face down again. Bad timing? Vanessa asked, raising an eyebrow. Work stuff, he lied. Always something. She stepped closer, looping her arm through his. Not today. Today is ours. He nodded even as something heavy pressed against his ribs. He told himself that panic would not help anyone. Claire was strong. Money covered everything important. He would show up later and smooth things over like he always did. What Garrett did not know was that back in Manhattan, a nurse was already flagging his wife's chart. He did not know that Claire's blood pressure was climbing fast. He did not know that doctors were preparing for an emergency that required immediate consent. And he did not know that every second he chose the ocean over the hospital was quietly sealing his fate. As Vanessa pulled him toward the door, Garrett's phone buzzed again. This time he hesitated just long enough for the screen to light up with a name he could not ignore. Dr. Samuel Reed. He stared at it, his pulse suddenly loud in his ears. Then the phone stopped ringing. A voicemail notification appeared seconds later. Garrett pressed play. Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Reed's voice said, clipped and professional. Your wife has been taken into emergency surgery. There are life-threatening complications. We need your immediate consent for potential interventions. Please call me back now. The message ended. Garrett stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear long after the line went dead. The world around him seemed suddenly unreal, the soft music drifting from the lounge, the laughter of strangers, the faint smell of sunscreen and coffee. None of it belonged anymore. Belle stepped closer, concern etched across her face. What is going on? He opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth felt too heavy to shape into words. They are operating, he finally said. And the baby. Right now? He nodded. You should call back, she said, slower this time. Garrett hesitated. That instinct again. The one that told him once he stepped back into the chaos. There would be no retreat, no soft landing. But this time, he could not look away. He dialed. Dr. Reed answered on the first ring. Mr. Mitchell, your wife lost a significant amount of blood. The baby was delivered but is in the NICU, not breathing on his own. We need your consent for potential blood transfusions and additional interventions. Garrett swallowed hard. Do whatever you have to do. Just save them. There was a pause on the other end. Then Dr. Reed continued, his voice dropping. There is another issue. The insurance plan on file was downgraded 2 weeks ago. Your wife's coverage level does not match what we have documented. We are working around it, but Mr. Mitchell, why was your wife not informed? The question hit like a punch to the chest. I was optimizing costs, Garrett stammered. It was temporary. I see. Dr. Reed's tone was ice. I suggest you get here, quickly. The call ended. Garrett stood motionless, staring at the phone like it had betrayed him. Vanessa watched him carefully. Her face had changed, the playfulness replaced by something calculating. What did they say? She asked. Garrett looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time all weekend. And in that moment, he saw what Claire must have seen all along. A man who ran from hard things. A man who chose comfort over commitment. A man who was about to lose everything. I have to go, he said quietly. Vanessa did not try to stop him. She simply nodded, already reaching for her phone, already planning her next move. Garrett walked out of the hotel room without looking back. But as he rushed toward the airport, one thought kept circling his mind like a vulture. What have I done? Claire woke to a world that felt muffled and far away. The first thing she noticed was the ceiling, white tiles cracked faintly near the corner. The second was the ache, deep, vast everywhere. A pain that was not sharp but heavy, like something essential had been taken from her. She tried to move her hand. A soft beep responded. A nurse appeared at her side almost instantly. Easy, Claire. You are in recovery. Claire swallowed, her throat burning. My baby. The nurse's pause told her everything before words ever could. He is alive, the nurse said carefully. He is in the NICU. He needs support, but he is stable for now. A sob tore out of Claire before she could stop it. Relief and terror crashed together in her chest, leaving her gasping for air. Can I see him? Soon, the nurse said gently, but you need to rest first. Claire nodded, though rest felt impossible. Her mind was already racing, piecing together fragments of memory. The operating room, the alarms, the fear. And then, like a bruise pressed too hard, the absence. "Did my husband come?" she asked, already bracing herself. The nurse's eyes softened. He called. The doctor spoke with him. Called, not came. Claire closed her eyes. That single word settled heavier than any diagnosis. He had been reachable. He had known. And still he was not here. Miranda appeared in the doorway, looking like she had not slept in days, which she probably had not. She crossed the room in 3 quick strides and took Claire's hand. "Hey," she said softly. "You scared the hell out of me." "I scared the hell out of myself," Claire whispered. Miranda smiled weakly. "Your boy is a fighter. I saw him through the glass. Tiny, but tough, like his mama." Tears slipped down Claire's temples, soaking into her hair. She wanted to feel joy. She wanted to celebrate. But all she could feel was the hollow space where her husband should have been standing. "Has Garrett called?" Claire asked. Miranda's jaw tightened. He left a voicemail. Said he is on his way. "From where?" Miranda hesitated. The silence stretched too long. "From where, Miranda?" "From wherever he was with that woman," Miranda finally said. "I am sorry, honey. I did not want to tell you like this." Claire stared at the ceiling. Something inside her hardened. Not brittle, but solid, like bones setting after a break. "I want to see my son," she said. 20 minutes later, a wheelchair carried Claire through sterile hallways to the NICU. The room was dimmer than the rest of the hospital, lit with gentle blue and white glows from monitors and incubators. It felt like a place suspended outside time, where hope and fear existed side by side. And there he was. Her baby lay inside the incubator, impossibly small. His chest rose and fell beneath a web of thin tubes and sensors. His skin looked almost translucent, fragile and real and miraculous. "Oh my God," Claire breathed. She reached through the opening and touched his tiny hand with one finger. He curled around it weakly, the smallest grip she had ever felt, but it shattered her completely. "I am here," she whispered. "I am not going anywhere." The nurse beside her smiled. "He has been waiting for you." Claire sat there for what felt like hours, watching her son breathe, counting each rise and fall of his chest like a prayer. She did not think about Garrett. She did not think about the future. She just existed in that moment, mother and child, fighting together. Miranda stood watch by the door, arms crossed, expression fierce. Anyone who tried to interrupt would have to get through her first. It was past midnight when Dr. Reed appeared. He looked tired, the weight of the day etched into his face, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "Claire," he said gently, "there are some things we need to discuss. When you are ready," she did not look away from her son. "Tell me now." Dr. Reed nodded. He pulled a tablet from under his arm and moved closer. "During the surgery, we encountered complications with your insurance authorization. Your plan on file did not cover the procedure level required." Claire frowned. "That is not possible. My husband handles the insurance. It is supposed to be full coverage." Dr. Reed's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes shifted. "The plan was changed," he said carefully. 2 weeks ago, downgraded from premium to basic. The modification was made using your login credentials, but the IP address traces to your husband's work computer." The words landed like stones in her chest. Claire felt the room tilt. "What?" "The basic plan does not cover NICU beyond 48 hours, Dr. Reed continued. "The estimated out-of-pocket cost is approximately $340,000. Claire could not speak, could not breathe. Miranda stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Are you telling me that her husband changed her insurance while she was pregnant, without telling her, and now she is looking at bankruptcy on top of everything else?" "I am telling you what the records show," Dr. Reed replied. "What you do with that information is up to you." Claire's mind raced backward. Garrett insisting on handling the finances. Garrett saying he would optimize their accounts. Garrett kissing her forehead and promising everything would be fine. "He did this," she whispered. "He did this to me." Miranda crouched beside her wheelchair, gripping her hand. "We are going to figure this out. I promise. But right now, you need to rest." Claire shook her head. "I need to see the records, all of them." Dr. Reed studied her for a long moment. Then he handed her the tablet. I thought you might say that, he said. If you need anything, I am here. As he walked away, Claire began to scroll through the documents, insurance modifications, authorization logs, timestamps, the boring, undeniable trail that systems always left behind. Every piece of evidence pointed to one person, the man who had promised to take care of everything. Garrett Mitchell arrived at the hospital 26 hours after his son was born. He looked haggard, unshaven, nothing like the polished executive Claire had married. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His tie hung loose around his neck like a noose he could not quite escape. He found Claire's room empty except for Miranda, who sat in the visitor's chair like a guard dog waiting for an intruder. "Where is she?" Garrett demanded. "Where is my wife?" Miranda stood slowly, her movements deliberate, controlled. "Your wife is recovering from almost dying while you were posting sunset pictures with your side piece. That is not what it was." Garrett's voice cracked. "It is not what you think." Miranda stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Save it, Garrett. I am not the one you need to convince. But let me tell you something. I grew up in Detroit. I have seen men like you my whole life. Suits, smiles, lies. You think you are smart? You are not. You are just a coward with a credit card." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled coldly. "Oh, look, the group chat. Our book club is taking bets on how long before Claire divorces you. Tammy says 2 weeks. I said 2 days. Do not make me lose money, Garrett." She walked out, shoulder-checking him hard as she passed. Garrett stood alone in the empty room, his reflection multiplied in the dark windows. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like the air had been let out of whatever inflated sense of himself he had been carrying. He found Claire in the NICU, standing beside the incubator, watching their son through the glass. Her back was to him, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself like she was bracing for impact. "Claire," he said softly. "Baby. I am so sorry. I can explain everything." She did not turn around. "Explain what? The woman? The insurance? Or the fact that our son almost died alone?" Garrett moved closer, his hands reaching for her. "The insurance was a mistake, a glitch in the system." "I am fixing it." Claire finally turned. Her eyes were red but dry. She was done crying. "You are fixing it," she repeated. "Like you fixed our fertility treatments? Like you fixed our finances? Like you fixed everything by making sure I had no idea what was actually happening?" Garrett flinched. "I was trying to protect you. From what?" Claire's voice rose. "From knowing that my husband was sleeping with another woman while I was carrying his child? From knowing that he changed my insurance to save money for his gambling debts?" "Yes, Garrett, I know about that too." The color drained from his face. "How did you know about the gambling?" "Because I spent the last 24 hours doing what I should have done years ago," Claire said. "I looked at the records. All of them. The ones you thought I would never find." Garrett's composure shattered. "Claire, please, I made mistakes. I know that. But we can work through this. We have a son now. We are a family." Claire looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and final. "I want you to leave. You are upset. You are not thinking clearly. I have never thought more clearly in my life." She pressed the call button beside her. Seconds later, a security guard appeared in the doorway. "This man needs to be escorted out," Claire said calmly. "He is not authorized to be here." Garrett stared at her in disbelief. "You cannot do this. He is my son too, and I am his mother." Claire's voice did not waver. "And right now, I am the only one who showed up when he needed someone." The security guard stepped forward. "Sir, this way, please." Garrett looked like he wanted to argue, to fight, to somehow wrestle control back. But something in Claire's eyes stopped him. Something new. Something unbreakable. He turned and walked away without another word. When he was gone, Claire sank into the chair beside the incubator. Her whole body was shaking. Miranda reappeared moments later, carrying a cup of tea. She handed it to Claire without a word and sat down beside her. "You did good," Miranda said quietly. "Real good." Claire took a shaky breath. "I do not feel good. I feel like I am going to fall apart." Miranda reached over and squeezed her hand. "Then fall apart. I will be here to help you put the pieces back together." They sat in silence, watching the baby sleep. Outside, the city hummed with life, indifferent to the drama unfolding in the small, sterile room. But inside, something had shifted. Claire had spent years letting someone else make decisions for her. She had confused control with care, manipulation with love. But that was over now. She looked at her son, so small and fragile, fighting for every breath. "I am going to protect you," she whispered. "I am going to be strong enough for both of us." And for the first time since everything fell apart, she believed it. 3 days after the surgery, Claire was finally ready to take her son home. The NICU doctors had cleared him for discharge. His vitals were stable, his breathing steady, his tiny body strong enough to survive outside the protective cocoon of machines and monitors. Claire stood by the window of her hospital room, watching Manhattan wake up below. The city looked different now, sharper, clearer, like she was seeing it for the first time without the fog of someone else's lies clouding her vision. Miranda had spent the previous night decorating Claire's apartment with welcome home banners. The refrigerator was stocked with enough food to feed an army. Everything was ready for a fresh start. Almost everything. Dr. Samuel Reed appeared in the doorway, his expression guarded in a way Claire had learned to recognize. He was carrying something heavy, something that would change everything. "Claire," he said gently, "I need to speak with you privately. It concerns the blood work we ran during your son's treatment." Claire's stomach dropped. She nodded to Miranda, who squeezed her shoulder and stepped outside, though her eyes promised she would be right there if needed. Dr. Reed closed the door and sat down across from Claire. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, which only made the waiting worse. During the emergency transfusion protocol, he began, "We ran standard compatibility tests, blood typing, genetic markers, the usual safety screenings. We do this to ensure the safest possible treatment for the patient." He paused. "The results indicate that Garrett is not the biological father of your son." The words hit Claire like a physical blow. The room tilted. She gripped the edge of the bed to keep from falling. "What?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "That is not possible. I would never." "Although I am not suggesting infidelity on your part," Dr. Reed said quickly. "Please understand that. The discrepancy appears to originate from the IVF process itself. The donor sample used during your procedure does not match Garrett's genetic profile." Claire's mind raced backward through memories she had tried not to examine too closely. Garrett's private conversations with Dr. Harrison at the fertility clinic. Garrett insisting on handling all the paperwork himself. Garrett telling her not to worry about the details. "Trust me, babe," he had said. "I have got everything under control." "I do not understand," Claire whispered. "How is this possible?" Dr. Reed shook his head slowly. "Neither do we. Yet. But the hospital is required to investigate any discrepancies of this nature." "Claire, do you have access to any documentation from the fertility clinic? Consent forms, procedure records, anything that Garrett handled directly?" Claire nodded, her thoughts spinning like leaves in a hurricane. "I trusted him. I let him manage everything because he said it was too complicated for me to worry about." "This is not your fault," Dr. Reed said firmly. "Whatever happened, you were deceived. But you deserve to know the truth. And I believe there is more to uncover." When he left, Claire sat motionless for a long time. The joy she had been preparing to feel, the relief of finally bringing her son home, all of it had evaporated like morning dew under harsh sunlight. Miranda returned the moment the door opened. She took one look at Claire's face and knew immediately that something catastrophic had happened. "What is it?" Miranda demanded, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. "What did he say?" Claire told her. Every word, every impossible, earth-shattering revelation. When she finished, Miranda was silent for nearly a full minute. Her jaw worked like she was chewing on words too bitter to swallow. Then she stood up, grabbed her phone, and started pacing like a caged lion. "Okay," she said. "Okay, we are going to figure this out. I know people. Tammy from the hospital, she spent 15 years hunting down medical billing fraud. If Garrett left any kind of trail, she will find it. And Diana Brooks, that lawyer I told you about, she handles cases like this. She is a shark in heels and she does not lose." Claire shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "What if it is true? What if he did something to the IVF? What if my baby is not even—" She could not finish the sentence. The words were too terrible to speak aloud. Miranda stopped pacing. She crossed the room and crouched in front of Claire, gripping her hands with fierce intensity. "Listen to me," she said. "That baby in there? He grew inside you for 9 months. He has your eyes, your nose, your stubborn chin. He fought to survive when the odds were against him. Biology does not make a mother, Claire. Love does. And you love that boy more than anything in this world. That is all that matters." Claire nodded, unable to speak through her tears. "But," Miranda added, her voice hardening into steel, "we are still going to find out exactly what Garrett did, and we are going to make him pay for every single lie." Over the next 72 hours, Claire and Miranda worked around the clock. They dug through every record they could access: insurance documents, clinic logs, consent forms, email confirmations. Tammy joined them remotely, her sharp eyes catching inconsistencies that everyone else had missed. What they discovered was worse than Claire's darkest nightmares. Garrett had a gambling addiction, secret, massive. He owed $280,000 to people who did not accept payment plans or negotiate terms. The fertility clinic had a research program that offered significant payments for biological donations. Garrett had enrolled Claire in this program without her knowledge or consent, authorizing the use of her eggs with a donor sample that was not his own. He had pocketed $50,000 as a participation fee. In essence, he had sold his wife's reproductive rights to pay off his gambling debts. And the baby? The miracle child Claire had prayed for, suffered for, nearly died for. He was the result of a procedure Claire had never agreed to, involving genetic material from a stranger she would never meet. Claire stared at the evidence on her laptop screen, her hands trembling so violently she could barely keep them on the keyboard. "He sold my eggs," she whispered. "He sold my baby." "This is not just betrayal," Tammy said through the video call, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "This is medical fraud, reproductive coercion, possibly even human trafficking of biological material, depending on how the prosecutors want to frame it. You have grounds for criminal charges that could put him away for years." Diana Brooks, who had joined the call an hour earlier, nodded grimly. "I have seen a lot of terrible things in family court. This ranks among the worst. But Claire, we have him. The evidence is solid. The question is what you want to do with it." Claire looked at her son sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. He was completely unaware of the storm that had created him. Innocent. Perfect. Hers. "I want the truth," Claire said. "All of it. And then I want him to face every consequence he deserves." Diana smiled. "That is exactly what I was hoping you would say." Claire thought she had time. She thought she could build her case carefully, methodically, brick by brick, until the wall around Garrett was too high for him to climb. She was catastrophically wrong. 1 week after discovering the truth about the IVF fraud, Claire was sitting in Miranda's kitchen, feeding Noah his morning bottle, and reviewing documents with Diana on speakerphone. Her cell phone rang, an unfamiliar number with a Manhattan area code. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Jennifer Chen from First National Bank. I am calling to inform you that your accounts have been frozen due to a legal hold placed this morning." Claire nearly dropped the bottle. "What legal hold? I did not authorize anything." "I am sorry, ma'am. The hold was placed by court order. You will need to speak with your attorney for further details." The call ended before Claire could ask another question. Her heart pounding, she immediately opened her laptop. Her email account would not load. "Password incorrect," the screen informed her. After 3 attempts, the account locked entirely. "Miranda," Claire called out, her voice rising with panic. "Something is wrong." Miranda rushed in from the living room. "What happened?" "My bank accounts are frozen. My email is locked. Someone changed my passwords." They stared at each other as the horrible truth crystallized between them. "Garrett," Miranda said, "he knew all your passwords." Claire's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "You should have kept your mouth shut," it read. "Now watch what happens." 30 minutes later, Diana arrived with a stack of papers and an expression that Claire had never seen on her face before. Something between fury and fear. "He filed first," Diana said, spreading the documents across the kitchen table. "Garrett and his lawyers submitted an emergency motion this morning. They are claiming you are mentally unfit to care for Noah. Postpartum psychosis, they are calling it. Emotional instability, paranoid delusions." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. That is insane. I am not crazy. I know that, Diana said. But they have documentation. Medical records that appear to show you were treated for anxiety and depression during your pregnancy. Statements from neighbors claiming you exhibited erratic behavior. Even a letter from a psychiatrist recommending evaluation. None of that is real, Claire said desperately. I never saw a psychiatrist. Those records are fabricated. I believe you, Diana replied. But proving forgery takes time. And right now they are asking the court for emergency custody of Noah while you undergo psychiatric evaluation. The room started spinning. Claire gripped the edge of the table. They want to take my son. They want to silence you, Diana said grimly. If you are deemed unfit, your testimony about the IVF fraud becomes worthless. No prosecutor will build a case around a witness who has been declared mentally unstable. Miranda slammed her fist on the table. This is insane. He commits fraud. He abandons her during childbirth. He sells her eggs to pay off gambling debts, and somehow she is the crazy one? Welcome to family court, Diana said bitterly. The parent with more money usually gets to control the narrative, at least initially. When is the hearing? Claire asked, her voice barely audible. 3 days. 3 days. 72 hours to prove her sanity, expose a conspiracy, and save her son from the man who had betrayed her in every possible way. Claire looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully in his carrier, completely unaware that his entire world was about to be torn apart. Something inside her shifted. The fear did not disappear, but it moved aside to make room for something else, something harder, something that had been forged in foster homes, in broken promises, in a lifetime of being underestimated. Tell me what I need to do, Claire said. Diana nodded slowly, a glimmer of respect in her eyes. First, we counterfile. We present every piece of evidence we have. We request an investigation into the fabricated medical records. And we make sure the judge understands exactly who Garrett Mitchell really is. What about the frozen accounts? Miranda asked. She cannot pay for legal fees if she cannot access her money. Diana smiled grimly. That is where things get interesting. I have been waiting for a case like this. Consider my fees deferred until we win. And we are going to win. The next 3 days were the most intense of Claire's life. Diana worked around the clock, filing motions and gathering counter evidence. Tammy traced the fabricated medical records to a private clinic that Garrett had connections to through his gambling associates. Miranda rallied every friend, neighbor, and acquaintance who could testify to Claire's mental stability and devotion to her son. But Garrett had resources. He had connections. And he had Vanessa Cole, who turned out to be far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Vanessa was not just a mistress. She was the daughter of a hedge fund manager with political connections throughout New York State. She had been feeding information to Garrett for months, helping him plan his counterattack while pretending to be nothing more than arm candy. The night before the hearing, Claire sat alone in Miranda's apartment, staring at the wall of evidence they had assembled. Charts, timelines, photographs, documents. The entire ugly truth of her marriage laid bare for strangers to judge. Miranda found her there at 2 in the morning. You should be sleeping, Miranda said gently. I cannot, Claire replied. Every time I close my eyes, I see him taking Noah. I see that smug look on his face. I see everything I worked for disappearing. Miranda sat down beside her. Do you remember what you told me when we first became friends? Back when I was going through my divorce from Marcus? Claire shook her head. You said that the worst thing about betrayal is not the pain. It is the way it makes you doubt yourself. Makes you wonder if you deserved it somehow. Makes you feel small. Miranda took her hand. But you also said that the only way through it is to stop being small. To take up all the space you deserve. To be so loud and so strong that no one can ever make you disappear again. Tears slipped down Claire's cheeks. I do not know if I can be that strong. You do not have to be, Miranda said firmly. That is what sisters are for. We will be strong enough for you until you can be strong for yourself. Claire leaned into her friend's shoulder and finally let herself cry. The hearing the next morning was a disaster. Garrett arrived in a perfectly tailored suit, looking every inch the concerned father. Vanessa sat in the gallery, her expression arranged in practiced sympathy. Their lawyer was expensive, polished, and utterly ruthless. He painted Claire as unstable, paranoid, vindictive, A woman so consumed by jealousy that she had fabricated wild accusations against the husband who only wanted what was best for their child. We are not asking to punish this woman, the lawyer concluded. We are asking to protect a helpless infant from a mother who is clearly in crisis. Temporary custody with the father will allow Mrs. Mitchell to receive the help she so desperately needs. When it was Diana's turn, she presented everything they had. The insurance fraud, the gambling debts, the IVF manipulation. But without independent verification, without the original clinic records that Garrett's people had somehow made disappear, much of it looked like speculation. The judge's ruling was careful and measured. I am not prepared to remove the child from his mother's custody at this time, she said. However, I am granting supervised visitation rights to the father to begin immediately. Both parties are ordered to submit to psychological evaluation. Any attempt to restrict the father's access or to leave the jurisdiction will be considered a serious violation of this order. Claire sat frozen as the implications washed over her. She had not lost. Not completely, but she had not won either. Outside the courthouse, Garrett approached her while Diana was on the phone with their investigator. He leaned close, his voice barely a whisper, his breath hot against her ear. You should have stayed in your lane, Claire, he said. I built this life. I control it. You are just a foster kid who got lucky, a nobody who should have been grateful for what I gave you. He pulled back, smiling for the cameras, looking like the picture of a reasonable man dealing with an unreasonable situation. This is not over, he added pleasantly. Not even close. He walked away, Vanessa on his arm like a trophy, leaving Claire standing alone on the courthouse steps as the first drops of rain began to fall. Miranda found her 10 minutes later, still frozen in place, rain soaking through her clothes. Come on, Miranda said, pulling her toward the car. We are not done yet, not by a long shot. For 3 days after the hearing, Claire barely moved from Miranda's couch. She held Noah constantly, as if letting go of him even for a moment might make him disappear. She barely ate, she barely slept. She just sat there staring at the wall, replaying Garrett's word over and over in her mind. A nobody, a foster kid who got lucky. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had been foolish to think she could fight someone with his money, his connections, his utter lack of conscience. Maybe she should just accept whatever scraps he was willing to throw her and be grateful. Miranda let her grieve for 3 days. On the 4th morning, she walked into the living room, pulled open every curtain, and announced that pity party time was officially over. I made some calls, Miranda said. You are not going through this alone anymore. Over the next 2 hours, women began arriving at the apartment, not with casseroles and sympathy, but with laptops and legal pads and the focused energy of people preparing for war. First came Tammy, rolling a small suitcase filled with files behind her. Her reading glasses were perched on her nose, and her expression suggested she had not slept in days. I found something, Tammy announced, unpacking her laptop. Something big. But I need to show you in person because you are not going to believe it otherwise. Next came Pastor Ruth, a 60-year-old woman with silver hair and kind eyes that held more steel than most people suspected. She was connected to networks throughout the city, from community organizations to local politicians to church groups that spanned 5 boroughs. I have seen men like Garrett destroy families, Pastor Ruth said quietly, but I have also seen God humble them in ways they never expected. Then came Diana, looking like she had not slept either, carrying a thick folder of documents and wearing an expression of barely contained excitement. Finally, a woman Claire did not recognize arrived. She was about 50, elegantly dressed, with an unmistakable air of old money. This is Patricia Mitchell, Diana said. Garrett's mother. Claire stared in shock as the older woman sat down across from her. I received a call from Pastor Ruth 3 days ago, Patricia said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. She told me things about my son that I did not want to believe. So I flew here to see for myself. She opened her purse and pulled out a folder of her own. What I found was worse than anything I could have imagined. Gambling debts dating back 7 years, affairs with at least 4 women that I could document, and the fertility clinic records that his father and I paid for, records that clearly show he authorized procedures you never consented to. Her voice cracked slightly, but she steadied herself. My son has done terrible things, Mrs. Mitchell. things I cannot excuse or forgive. I am here to help you make sure he faces the consequences." Claire could not speak. She had expected Garrett's family to close ranks, to protect their own. The idea that his mother would turn against him was almost impossible to process. Miranda squeezed her hand. "Told you. You are not alone." Tammy cleared her throat and turned her laptop so everyone could see the screen. "Okay," she said. "Here is what I found." 3 weeks before Claire's delivery date, Garrett accessed a private banking portal that he thought was completely untraceable. He transferred $62,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. She clicked to the next screen. The same day he logged into the fertility clinic's patient portal using Claire's credentials and modified the consent documentation to remove any reference to the alternative donor protocols. She clicked again. And here is where it gets really interesting. The IP address used for both transactions, it traces back to a hotel in the Hamptons, a hotel where, according to Instagram geotags, Vanessa Cole was hosting a birthday party for her interior designer. Diana leaned forward. "He was with Vanessa when he did all of this?" "Not just with her," Tammy said grimly. "I pulled the security footage from the hotel lobby. They walked in together, checked into the same suite, and did not leave for 3 days. The bank transfers and the medical record alterations were made during that window." Patricia Mitchell closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, her jaw was set like granite. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Diana smiled. "We need you to testify about Garrett's history, his gambling, his pattern of deception. Your testimony will establish that his behavior toward Claire was not an aberration. It was a pattern." Patricia nodded. "Whatever it takes." Pastor Ruth spoke up. "I have also been making calls. 6 women from my congregation have agreed to testify about Garrett's character. 2 of them were involved with him before he married Claire. They have documentation of his manipulation and lies." Claire felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope. Small and fragile, but real. "What about Vanessa?" she asked. "She has been helping him every step of the way." Miranda's smile turned predatory. "Funny you should mention that. I have been doing some research of my own." She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through screenshots. Vanessa Cole has spent the last 3 years building a brand as a lifestyle influencer. Wellness, self-care, women empowerment. Her whole platform is built on authenticity and female solidarity. She turned the phone so everyone could see. But her boyfriend before Garrett? He filed a police report accusing her of embezzlement. The case was dropped because his family paid her off to make it go away. And the company she supposedly runs? It is funded entirely by her father's hedge fund through a shell corporation that has been flagged by the SEC for suspicious trading activity. "How does this help us?" Claire asked. "It means," Diana said slowly, "that Vanessa Cole has as much to lose as Garrett does. Maybe more. If we can convince her that going down with him is not in her best interest, she might be willing to flip." "You want to turn his mistress into a witness?" Patricia asked skeptically. "I want to give her a choice," Diana replied. "Loyalty or survival? In my experience, people like Vanessa always choose survival." The room fell silent as everyone processed the magnitude of what they were planning. Finally, Claire spoke. "So what do we do first?" Diana pulled out a legal pad and began writing. "First, we file new motions with the court presenting all of this evidence. Second, we coordinate with the district attorney's office about criminal charges. Third, we approach Vanessa with an offer she cannot refuse." She looked up at Claire with a fierce gleam in her eye. "And fourth, we make sure that by the time this is over, Garrett Mitchell does not have a single ally left in the world." Miranda raised her coffee mug in a mock toast. "To the sisterhood," she said. Around the room, the other women raised their cups as well. "To justice," Pastor Ruth added. "To my grandson," Patricia said quietly. "May he never know what his father truly was." Claire looked at these women, these fierce and loyal and utterly unstoppable women who had rallied around her when she had nothing left to give. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt like she might actually win. The trap was set with surgical precision. Claire had spent 2 weeks preparing, rehearsing, steeling herself for the confrontation that would determine everything. Diana had coached her on what to say and what not to say. Miranda had helped her pick an outfit that projected confidence without aggression. Tammy had wired her with a recording device so small it was virtually undetectable. The restaurant was the kind of place Garrett loved. White tablecloths, soft lighting, a wine list that required its own leather-bound book. He had proposed to Claire in a place like this, confident and charming and utterly convincing. She wondered now how much of that had been real. Claire arrived first, choosing a table near the back with a clear view of the entrance. She wore a simple black dress and no jewelry except for her mother's watch, the cheap digital one she had kept through every foster home and every fresh start. It reminded her where she came from. It reminded her that she had survived worse than this. Garrett arrived exactly on time. He looked diminished somehow, the polish scraped away to reveal something hollow underneath. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot. He had lost weight in all the wrong places. Good, Claire thought. Let him suffer. He sat down across from her without ordering. Claire, he said, attempting a smile that did not reach his eyes. I am glad you agreed to meet. I know things have gotten out of hand, but I believe we can still find a reasonable solution. A reasonable solution? Claire repeated flatly. Yes. He leaned forward, trying to project sincerity. We have a son together. We are a family, regardless of our personal differences. Surely we can find a way to move forward that benefits everyone. Claire studied him for a long moment. This man she had loved, this man she had trusted, this man who had betrayed her in ways she was still discovering. I have a question, she said finally. Of course. Anything. Did you ever actually love me? The question caught him off guard. For a moment, something flickered across his face, something that might have been genuine. I thought I did, he said slowly. In the beginning, I really thought I did. What changed? He shrugged, looking away. You wanted too much. A family, stability, forever. I am not built for that, Claire. I never was. Claire nodded slowly. Thank you for your honesty. It makes what comes next easier. She reached into her purse and placed a small device on the table between them. This conversation is being recorded, she said calmly, as is the conversation you had with Dr. Harrison at the fertility clinic, which my investigator recovered from their backup servers. As is the conversation you had with your bookie, which the FBI obtained last week as part of their investigation into your gambling associates. The color drained from Garrett's face. Claire continued, her voice steady as bedrock. I know about the IVF fraud. I know about the gambling debts. I know about the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. I know about every lie you ever told me, and quite a few you told other people as well. She leaned forward slightly. But here is the part you did not know. Vanessa Cole has been cooperating with federal investigators for the past 10 days. In exchange for immunity on the embezzlement charges, she has provided detailed testimony about your conspiracy to falsify medical records and steal custody of our son. That is impossible, Garrett whispered. She would never betray me. Claire almost smiled. That is what you said about me. She stood up, gathering her purse. I did not come here to negotiate, Garrett. I came here to watch your face when you realized it was over. On cue, 2 federal agents rose from nearby tables. They had been enjoying coffee and desserts, looking like any other diners, completely invisible until this moment. Garrett Mitchell, the first agent said, flashing his badge. You are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, medical fraud, and conspiracy to commit reproductive coercion. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Garrett lurched to his feet, looking wildly around the restaurant. This is insane. You cannot do this. I have lawyers. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, the agent repeated, guiding him toward the exit. I suggest you use it. As they led him past Claire's table, Garrett stopped. For a moment, they stood face to face, closer than they had been in months. You ruined everything, he hissed. Claire met his eyes without flinching. No, she said quietly. You did. I just made sure everyone could see it. The agents pulled him away. The restaurant had gone silent, every diner watching as Garrett Mitchell was walked out in handcuffs, his carefully constructed life crumbling around him with every step. Miranda appeared at Claire's elbow, 2 glasses of champagne in her hands. Book club is going to love this chapter, she said. Claire accepted the glass but did not drink. She watched through the window as Garrett was loaded into an unmarked car, still protesting, still trying to explain, still believing he could talk his way out of consequences. Then the car pulled away, and he was gone. Claire exhaled slowly. The weight that had been pressing on her chest for months lifted, just slightly. "How do you feel?" Miranda asked. Claire considered the question carefully. "I feel like it is finally over," she said. Miranda clinked her glass against Claire's. "It is," she confirmed. "Now let us go home to your son." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Claire testified for 2 full days, walking the jury through every detail of Garrett's deception. The fertility clinic fraud, the insurance manipulation, the conspiracy to steal custody of her son. She spoke clearly and calmly, never breaking down, never giving his defense attorneys the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart. Vanessa Cole testified as well, her immunity deal contingent on complete cooperation. She described the planning meetings, the strategy sessions, the casual cruelty with which Garrett had discussed disposing of his inconvenient wife. By the time she finished, several jurors were openly crying. Patricia Mitchell took the stand last, Garrett's own mother testifying against her son, describing a pattern of manipulation and deceit that stretched back to his teenage years. She did not cry, but her voice shook as she condemned the man she had raised to become a monster. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Garrett to 12 years in federal prison with no possibility of early parole. Full custody of Noah was awarded to Claire, with a restraining order prohibiting any contact until the child reached 18. Garrett's assets were seized to pay restitution, including the offshore accounts he had thought were untouchable. As the bailiffs led him away, Garrett looked back at Claire one last time. She expected to see hatred in his eyes, or at least defiance. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like respect. Then the door closed behind him, and he was gone. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. Reporters certainly, but also women Claire had never met, holding signs that read, "We believe Claire and sisterhood survives." Somewhere along the way, her story had become more than personal. It had become a symbol. Diana guided her through the crowd to a waiting car. Miranda was already inside, tissues in hand. "You did it," Miranda said, her voice thick with emotion. "You actually did it. We did it," Claire corrected. "All of us." Pastor Ruth had organized a gathering at her church that evening. Not a celebration exactly, but an acknowledgement of survival. Women from all over the city came to share their own stories of betrayal and resilience, of hitting bottom and climbing back up. Claire spoke briefly, still exhausted from the trial, still processing everything that had happened. "I spent most of my life believing I was powerless," she said, "believing that my voice did not matter, that I needed someone else to validate my existence. But I was wrong." She looked out at the assembled faces, women of every age and background, united by shared experience. The power was inside me all along. I just needed the right people to help me find it. The applause was deafening. 2 years passed, then 3, then 5. Claire's life transformed in ways she never could have predicted. She returned to school, earning her MBA while Noah attended kindergarten. She founded a nonprofit organization called Second Chance, dedicated to helping women escape financial abuse and rebuild their independence. What started as a small office in Brooklyn grew into a national network with chapters in 43 states. Miranda became the organization's communications director, bringing her fierce energy and creative profanity to fundraising campaigns that raised millions. Tammy joined as head of financial forensics, teaching survivors how to trace hidden assets and document fraud. Pastor Ruth led the spiritual support division, offering counseling and community to women who had been isolated by their abusers. Even Patricia Mitchell became involved, establishing a foundation in her grandson's name to fund legal services for abuse survivors. She and Claire never became close exactly, but they developed a mutual respect born of shared purpose. Noah grew up surrounded by strong women who loved him fiercely. He learned to read from Miranda, who insisted that Harry Potter was essential literature. He learned to bake from Pastor Ruth, who believed that pie making was a spiritual practice. He learned compassion from his mother, who showed him by example what it meant to turn pain into purpose. He never asked about his father. Perhaps he sensed that some questions were better left for later. And then there was Marcus. They met at a fundraising gala for Second Chance. He was a housing advocate, soft-spoken and steady, with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of real work. He did not try to impress her with money or status. He just asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Their first date was coffee that turned into dinner that turned into walking through the park until nearly midnight, talking about everything and nothing. Their second date, he brought Noah a stuffed elephant. Noah promptly threw up on it. Marcus cleaned it up without complaint, then asked Noah if elephants were his favorite animal or if he would prefer a different species next time. That was the moment Claire knew. They got married on a Tuesday afternoon in Miranda's backyard. The ceremony was small, the guest list was restricted to family and the sisterhood that had saved Claire's life. Noah served as ring bearer and only dropped the rings twice. Miranda's toast made everyone laugh and cry simultaneously. To Claire, she said, raising her glass, who taught me that strength is not about never falling down? It is about getting back up every single time. And to Marcus, she added, turning to the groom, if you ever hurt her, I know people who know people, and I am not above bail money. The laughter was genuine, the joy was real, and Claire felt something she had not experienced in so long she had almost forgotten it existed. Peace. That night, after the guests had gone home and Noah was asleep in his bed, Claire stood at the window of their small house watching the stars. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? He asked. Claire leaned back against him. I was thinking about how different my life looks compared to what I imagined. Better or worse? She smiled. Different. I thought happiness meant someone taking care of me, protecting me, making decisions so I did not have to worry. And now I know that happiness means being strong enough to take care of myself and choosing to share that strength with someone who deserves it. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Claire turned in his arms and looked up at him. You already do, she said. 6 months after the wedding, a letter arrived. It had no return address, but Claire recognized the handwriting immediately. Garrett's script, once so confident and bold, now cramped and uncertain. She considered throwing it away unopened. She considered burning it. She considered a dozen different options that would have been perfectly justified. Instead, she sat down at the kitchen table and read, Claire, I watched Noah's birthday video, the one Miranda posted. He looks happy. He looks healthy. He looks like you. I know I do not deserve forgiveness. I am not asking for it. There is nothing I could say that would undo what I did or make it acceptable in any way. But I want you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not the money, not the career, not even my freedom. I lost the only person who ever loved me for who I could have been instead of who I was. I hope Noah grows up kind. I hope he finds someone who loves him the way you deserve to be loved. I hope he never makes the choices I made. I hope someday he can be proud of his mother. Because I am. Claire read the letter twice. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not to treasure, but to preserve. Someday when Noah was old enough to understand that people were complicated and redemption was a journey rather than a destination, she would show it to him. She would let him decide for himself what it meant. But that day was not today. Today, she had a nonprofit to run, a son to raise, a husband who loved her, and a future that belonged entirely to her. She walked to the window and looked out at the backyard where Marcus was teaching Noah to throw a football. They were both terrible at it, which made it even more perfect. Claire smiled. They say the best revenge is living well. They are wrong. The best revenge is not needing revenge at all. The best revenge is peace that no one can take away. The best revenge is becoming the person you were always meant to be. Claire Mitchell had survived. She had fought. She had won. And now, finally, she was free. And so Claire's story ends. Not with revenge, but with something far more powerful. Peace. If you are still here with me right now, it means something in this journey touched your heart. Maybe you recognized a piece of yourself in Claire's struggle. Maybe you have loved someone who did not deserve it. Maybe you are fighting your own battle right now, wondering if you are strong enough to survive. Let me tell you something. You are. The same strength that carried Claire through her darkest moments lives inside you too. You just have not needed it yet. Or maybe you have, and you are still standing. That makes you a warrior. If this story moved you, I have a small favor to ask. Hit that like button. Not for me, but for every woman who needs to hear that she is not alone. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Or simply write the word strong so I know you made it to the end. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. You never know whose life you might change with a single click. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel and tap that notification bell. I post stories like this every week. Stories of survival, stories of strength, stories of women who refuse to stay silent. Because here is what I believe with my whole heart. Every story shared is a life changed. Every voice raised is a silence broken. And every woman who refuses to give up makes the world a little brighter for the rest of us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for believing that happy endings are not just for fairy tales. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.